Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man tabi'al huda. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يجعل هذه محاضرة حجة لنا ولا علينا يا رب العالمين. اللهم زدنا علما نافعا ورزقا طيبا وعملا متقبلا يا رب العالمين. Brothers and sisters, students, friends, colleagues, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shower His mercy and blessings upon all of you this evening, in which we will be going over the Tafsir of Surah Al Kafiroon. Surah Al Kafiroon, the 109th Surah of the Quran. So we'll start off reciting some of these verses and then we'll go into the explanation. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل يا أيها الكافرون لا أعبد ما تعبدون ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد ولا أنا عابد ما عبدتم ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد لكم دينكم ولي دين. Surah Al Kafiroon, brothers and sisters, is a Meccan surah according to Ibn Mas'ud, Al-Hasan al-Basri. It is one opinion of Ibn Abbas and also Ikrimah as well. The majority of the scholars of Tafsir also have the opinion that Surah Al Kafiroon is a Meccan surah as well. And we talked about previously the meaning of what are Meccan surahs and what are Madani surahs, and we said the preponderant opinion of the scholars is that a Meccan surah is that which was revealed before the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ made migration from Mecca to Medina, and the Madani surahs were the surahs which were revealed after the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ made migration to Medina. So the name of this surah is called Al Kafiroon, or Surah Al Kafiroon, the disbelievers. Okay, the disbelievers. So when we say disbelievers, in Islam, the meaning of disbelievers are all those who don't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and all those who don't believe in the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this would mean, right, all the disbelievers on the face of the earth, including the Jews, including the Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, atheists, and the likes. And they are those who deny the worship of one God alone, and those who deny the messengership of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, what were the asbab and nuzul? What were some of the reasons and causes and justifications for the revelation of this surah to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? The scholars mention some narrations in their books of tafsir. One of them is that some of the disbelievers from Quraysh during the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's time, who, when the Prophet was calling them to Tawheed, the Prophet was calling them to the oneness of Allah and to abandon the worship of their idols, they came to him and offered him. They came to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, offered him, saying, they said, listen, Muhammad, come and follow our religion for 1 year and worship our idols for 1 year, and we will follow your religion for 1 year. And we will be partners in all of our other worldly affairs. So you worship our gods for 1 year, and we'll worship your God for 1 year. And if what you are inviting us to is better than what we're doing, then we would have participated in worshiping your God and taken a goodly portion of what you're inviting the people to. And if what we are doing is better than what you are doing, then you would have joined us and participated with us and taken your fair portion of the things that we are doing by worshipping our idols. So the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam outwardly responded. He says, A'udhu billah, ma'adhu billah. He says, I seek refuge in Allah from worshipping someone else besides Him. So the disbelievers and the idolaters and the polytheists of Quraysh, they responded. They said, at least come and greet some of our idols. Come and touch and rub some of our idols, and we will believe in you and your message, and we will follow you. And not only that, we will give you from our wealth, and we will worship your God as well. So then this surah was revealed, and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he went into the area, the vicinity of the Kaaba, where there were many tribesmen from his tribe of Quraysh, and he read this surah out loud to them in front of them. And once that surah was recited to them in the open, this became the onset. And from then on, we find that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and many of his companions started to be tortured and harmed, and many other types of evil things were done to them as well. And it's also been narrated. It's been narrated on the authority of Ibn Abbas. It's been narrated on the authority of Ibn Abbas that he said that there is no surah in the Quran. There is no surah in the Quran that is more harsh and severe against Iblis than this surah. Why is that? Because it is solely contains the complete monotheism and singling out of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and freeing oneself from polytheism and the religion of those who don't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what are the virtues of this surah? Okay, what are the fada'il of this surah? What are the fada'il of this surah? And it's very important, brothers and sisters, whenever we want to research or study the fada'il of any surah, is that we look and find the authentic narrations with the authentic chains of narration going back to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because we know many of the fabricators of hadith, they fabricated many hadith in relation to virtues of the Quran, because during the time that they were fabricating these narrations, they saw that people were turning away from the Quran, so they fabricated these narrations in order for the people to come back to the Quran and start reciting the Quran and studying the Quran more. But this is not a justification for fabricating hadith about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because this is one of the major sins in Islam, where the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Man kadhaba alayya muta'ammidan falyatabawwa maq'adahu min an-nar," that whoever intentionally lies upon me, then let him take his seat in the hellfire. So it's very important when we look to, we want to find out what are the virtues of the surah, that we refer back to the books which mention the chains of narration of these narrations. So we have a couple hadith which were mentioned in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, also Sunan al-Darimi, and also An-Nisa'i, and another one mentioned in Musnad of Imam Ahmad and also Sunan ibn Majah and Sahih ibn Khuzaymah, and they were all considered to be authentic. The first one is that one of the companions was on a journey with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they walked past someone reciting this surah, Surah Al Kafiroon. So the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said to the companion who was walking with him, he says, "Do you see this man reciting that surah? I bear witness that he has completely freed himself from polytheism." And then there was another man reciting Surah Al-Ikhlas. So the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, "As for the one reciting Surah Al-Ikhlas, then by him reciting it, he has been promised the paradise." And there is another hadith that Aisha radiallahu anha narrates. She says, "What great surahs you have. What great surahs there are that you should recite in the sunnah rak'ats before Fajr, Surah Al Kafiroon and Surah Al-Ikhlas." And in another narration narrated by Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, it says that also, it should be recited, it should be Surah Al Kafiroon and Surah Al-Ikhlas should be recited also in Maghrib as well. After the obligatory prayer of Maghrib, you pray your two sunnah and you recite Surah Al Kafiroon and Surah Al-Ikhlas. So we find and we understand from these narrations is that it's very important that the Muslim constantly connects himself and reminds himself about the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and frees himself from the religion of the disbelievers. So this is the first thing you should do when you wake up in the morning. The 2 rak'ah before the Fajr prayer, you communicate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with your heart and with your soul and with your mind and with your tongue and with your limbs, telling Him that there is no deity worthy of worship except Him alone. And then at the same time you're freeing yourself from the religion and from the disbelief of the polytheists and the idolaters. So this is the first thing you do in the morning, and this is the first thing you do in the evening. After you pray your Maghrib prayer, you once again free yourself from the religion of the polytheists and single Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and worship. So this shows us the importance of these 2 surahs, where the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would start his day with these 2 surahs and also end his day with these 2 surahs as well. So inshallah, in the first, we'll start off going over the tafsir now. Allah, He says in the first verse, قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ. قُلْ. Qul here is in the imperative form, a command form, an order form, as though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is dictating to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam what to respond to those polytheists who came to the Prophet and offered him, says, hey, oh Muhammad, worship our gods for 1 year and we'll worship your God for 1 year. So this is a direct response from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, telling and teaching the Prophet what to say to those polytheists who offered him an offer that contained the greatest type of falsehood in the creation. Secondly, it was revealed, as we said, as a response to those polytheists. Okay, and the first verse, okay, this is the first verse, قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ, came with the word used to call people from far away. Ya ayyuhal kafirun. Ya, in the Arabic language we have words which are called huruf al-nida. Huruf al-nida. Huruf al-nida, these are words you use to call upon people, whether they're close, whether they're far away. And there are different types of huruf al-nida which are used, for example, for those who are close. For example, you say ay Muhammad, or Muhammad, come. Muhammad, ta'ala. Ay Muhammad, ta'ala. These are usually huruf al-nida which are used for somebody who is close to you. And then there are other huruf al-nida which are used for those people who are far away, such as ayya, or hayya, or Muhammad, or ayya Muhammad, or hayya ya Umar. Okay? So we see here in this verse that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the harf al-nida, which is usually used for calling somebody who is far away. So if the disbelievers, the polytheists and the idolaters from Quraysh were living right there in Mecca with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Prophet was amongst them, and the Prophet actually went into the vicinity of the Kaaba and he recited to them this surah, why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala use the word Ya ayyuhal kafirun? Why wouldn't He use a word which expresses closeness to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? This, subhanAllah, this is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to address their stubbornness and their arrogance and their choosing of the farthest path away from monotheism and away from Tawheed and away from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were so harsh and stern against going away from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and disobeying his call and his invitation and rejecting his invitation. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressed them as though they were far away, that they were far away because of their disbelief. So what is kufr? Okay, here we have Ya ayyuhal kafirun. In order to understand what is a kafir, okay, what is a kafir, what is kufr? Okay, the word kufr, brothers and sisters, comes linguistically, it means as-satr wa-taghtiya. As-satru wa-taghtiya, meaning a covering or a concealment, something that covers something else, or something that conceals something else. And that's why we find, right, in the Quran, and we find throughout the Sunnah, many different usages of the word kafir, of kuffar, of kufr, many different usages throughout the Quran and Sunnah. Right? One of them, for example, in the Quran, in Surah Al Hadid, we find that Allah uses the word, right, kuffar, to talk about farmers. When He says, كَمَثَلِ غَيْثٍ أَعْجَبَ الْكُفَّارَ نَبَاتُهُ, like the abundant rain which comes down and it pleases the farmers. أَعْجَبَ الْكُفَّارَ. أَعْجَبَ الْكُفَّار means the farmers are pleased with the growth which comes forth from after the abundance of rain descends. Also, the word kuffar is used for the night, al-layla, right? Al-layla kafira, meaning that the darkness of the night covers the day. Also, right, the ocean, right? Al-bahr, bahr al-amiq can also be called a kafir, right? Or kufr, okay? Also a deep valley, a wadi, right? Al-wadi, al-amiq, right? Also a deep valley because you can't see to the bottom of it, or a dark cloud in the sky. All of these words have been used, all of these usages have been used, the word kafir or kufr, right, or kuffar, to describe things which contain darkness or conceal or cover other things. So the technical meaning, brothers and sisters, of al-kufr is the opposite of iman, the opposite of faith. Also, one who denies monotheism, one who denies prophethood, the prophethood of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and any of the other prophets who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent, or denial of Islamic laws, or all of the three. So if somebody denies one of those things or all three, then they are considered, right, kuffar or kafir. Also denying Allah's lordship, Allah's rububiyyah, and the prophethood of any one of the prophets, as we just mentioned. Also denying anything that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ taught us and brought to us. So one is called a kafir because kufr, right? Kufr, denial, has covered his heart. Denial has covered his heart. There's been a seal on his heart where he cannot realize these signs in the creation that will enable him to submit to his Creator. So, many uses of kufr and kafir in the Quran and the Sunnah, and the majority of the uses that we find in the Quran and Sunnah are used for major kufr and not minor kufr. They're used for major kufr and not minor kufr. So we have major kufr, which is disbelief in Allah. Disbelief in Allah, and it takes somebody out of the folds of Islam. Then we have minor kufr, which is normally used to talk about somebody being ungrateful for the favors, for the blessings and the bounties bestowed upon people by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or bestowed upon people by other individuals. So the major kufr, as we said, it takes somebody out of the folds of Islam. It is contrary to the fundamental beliefs in Islam and the fundamental teachings of Islam, and it will lead someone to abide eternally in the hellfire. And there are many different types of major kufr, brothers and sisters. We need to be aware of them so we can avoid them. The first type is al-inkaru wa takdhib. The second type is al-juhud. The third is al-inad wal-istikbar. The fourth is al-nifaq. The fifth is al-i'rad. And the sixth is al-shak. Okay, the first one, al-inkaru wa takdhib, means denial. Okay, denial and somebody not affirming or not confirming. Okay, so this entails somebody not knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at all, not admitting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists, and disbelieving in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's existence. Also denying the messages of the prophets, not accepting any of them. And it starts where? It starts in the heart. It starts in the heart. So this person has no belief at all in his heart. This is inkar and takdhib. Second, al-juhud is rejection. Okay, rejection. The first was denial and a lack of affirmation or confirmation. Now we have rejection. Al-juhud is rejection. Knowing Allah in one's heart, somebody knowing Allah in one's heart, but not admitting and confirming it with the tongue. Meaning somebody knows the truth in their heart, but they are hiding it. They are hiding it and they don't want to come out with it. Okay, come out with it on their tongue. And this is of two types. We have absolute juhud and specific juhud. Okay? The absolute is one who denies and negates Allah's lordship, or some of what Allah revealed, or that He ever sent messengers. Okay, the specific type is to deny or negate an obligation from the obligatory duties in Islam. For example, somebody says Hajj is not obligatory. Somebody says paying zakat is not obligatory. Somebody says avoiding zina is not obligatory. Or somebody denies that something is prohibited in Islam, right? Or denies some of the information or some of the facts or revelation that Allah and His Messenger told us about. So that's the specific type of juhud. Third type, al-inad. Okay, al-inad is knowing something is true. Okay, al-inad wal-istikbar. Okay, arrogance and stubbornness. Knowing something is true, but the person still ignores it and denies it. And this is like the kufr of Abu Talib. His type of disbelief was from what? Was from stubbornness. Right? And the stubbornness and the kufr of Abu Jahl. To know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists with one's heart, and He is the Lord. But admit it with one's tongue, but does not practice it in one's limbs or as a religion. And this is what led Abu Talib to not accepting the message of Islam, because he was worried about being blamed from amongst his relatives and abandoning the religion of his forefathers. So his type of kufr was the kufr of stubbornness. And he said this himself in some lines of poetry where he said, وَلَقَدْ عَلِمْتُ بِأَنَّ دِينَ مُحَمَّدًا مِنْ خَيْرِ أَدْيَانِ الْبَرِيَّةِ دِينًا لولا الملامة أو حذار مسبة لوجدتني سمحا بذاك مبينا. So Abu Talib admitted himself that the religion of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is the best of religions, but it was only because he was worried about being blamed by his relatives and being cursed by his relatives that he did not choose to accept the message of his nephew, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. The next type of kufr, brothers and sisters, is the kufr of nifaq. The kufr of nifaq. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cure and purify all of our hearts from these types of things. So the kufr of nifaq, hypocrisy. Okay, hypocrisy is to externally or outwardly admit and show belief with the tongue or with the limbs, but to not believe truly in one's heart. So externally one acts as though he is a believer, but internally he is a disbeliever. And it comes from two sources. Hypocrisy comes from two sources, brothers and sisters. The first is denial. Denying the truthfulness of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, denying the truthfulness of his message, denying the truthfulness of the Quran, denying the anything that Allah or His Messenger came with. Secondly, showing off, doing things to please the people, doing things because you want to be accepted, conforming and giving up some of your beliefs because you want the people to accept you in the society that you live in. Secondly, its causes are two. So there are two sources and two causes. Okay, the first one is weak certainty. Weak certainty and having weak yaqeen about one's beliefs. You're doubtful about Allah. You're doubtful about the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So this is one cause. The second cause is weakness in commitment and determination and resolve. So if these four pillars are present in an individual, then you will see that he will be filled with hypocrisy and nifaq. So there are two types of nifaq. We have major type of nifaq and minor type of nifaq. The major type of nifaq is externally, okay? It is externally to show iman and faith, but to internally disbelieve. This is called nifaq al-i'tiqadi. Nifaq i'tiqadi, right? Nifaq, hypocrisy in one's beliefs. And this removes someone out of the fold of Islam, and that person will eternally abide in the hellfire. And this is what Allah says in the Quran, right? About that the munafiqun, right, fi darki asfali min an-nar, that the munafiqun, the hypocrites, will be in the lowest part of the hellfire. And these are like the hypocrites such as Abdullah ibn Ubay, right, and those who lived amongst the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Medina from amongst the hypocrites, and Allah talks about them in the Quran in Surah Al-Munafiqun. Then we have the minor type of hypocrisy. Okay, the minor type of hypocrisy is hypocrisy in actions. Hypocrisy in actions such as lying, such as breaking promises. Okay, as the Prophet mentioned in Hadith, for example, when you get into an argument or debate, you start arguing and raising your voice and leaving off the fine characters and manners and etiquettes of the Muslim. So these are some of the characteristics of one who has some hypocrisy in him, right? This is called nifaq al-amali. So the nifaq al-amali, it doesn't remove someone from the fold of Islam. Okay, it doesn't remove someone from the fold of Islam. So if we look and ponder over what categories of people were existing in the time of the Prophet Muhammad, we will find that there were a couple categories of people. One, you had those who were outwardly believers. Those who were outwardly believers. Those who were believers. Then the second category, those who were believers, but they were hiding their belief out of fear to be tortured or punished and things like this. Then you had hypocrites. Okay, hypocrites, those, when did they emerge? They emerged in Medina. Those who were outwardly showing iman, but inwardly hiding disbelief. Either to benefit from the benefits from the Muslim community, benefit from the spoils of war, benefit from the Bayt al-Mal, or for protection and these type of things. And then the last category are the disbelievers. Okay, the disbelievers, the open disbelievers. So 4 categories of people. The hypocrites who emerged in Medina. Then we have the believers who were openly believing, then the disbelievers who were openly disbelieving, then we had some believers in the early Meccan period who were hiding some of their belief in the initial period of Islam. So this is why we see, if we open up Surah Al-Baqarah, right? Surah Al-Baqarah, the second chapter of the Quran, and you look at the opening verses, you'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, first He describes some characteristics of the believers. About 4 or 5 verses talking about the characteristics of the believers. Then He goes on to mention 2 characteristics of the disbelievers. Then He mentions many verses, over 10 verses, about 13 verses, which talk about the characteristics of the hypocrites. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned many verses about the hypocrites. Why? Because they are the most dangerous upon the Muslim community. So then we have 2 more types of kufr, brothers and sisters. The kufr of i'rad. The kufr of i'rad, which is turning away and ignoring the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the remembrance of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the revelation. Turning one's ears away and turning one's heart away from what Allah or His Messenger is telling us and not believing in them. And the last type of kufr is a shak, right? Having doubts or uncertainty. The person who has shak, he doesn't have certainty about the truthfulness of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he has doubts about many of the pillars of faith and what is necessary for him to believe in. So disbelief, brothers and sisters, just like iman is three things. Iman is belief in the heart, statements of the tongue, and actions in the limbs. Also disbelief is disbelief in the heart, disbelief in the tongue, and disbelief in the action. So we'll take the first one, belief in the heart, or the intentions. Okay, believing in the heart that which contradicts faith. Okay, this is disbelief. Okay, this is disbelief. So when one has disbelief in his heart, he believes in his heart that which contradicts the faith, disbelieving in the Prophet Muhammad, or anything that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ came with, or doubting the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's truthfulness, or believing Allah has a partner in lordship, or believing, right, that somebody else has a right to be worshipped besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or disbelieving in Allah's names or His attributes, or considering these things even to be permissible. Okay, so disbelief in the tongue. What is disbelief in the tongue? Disbelief in the tongue are statements that are disbelief, such as cursing Allah, slandering Allah, cursing the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, slandering the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, or somebody coming along claiming that he is a prophet or messenger or receiving revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there is one exception, okay? There's one exception in regards to these things here, and this is if somebody is forced or coerced into saying these things, right? And if, right, somebody is put in a state of life or death, if somebody is going to be killed, then the scholars say that it is permissible for him to utter, right, a statement of disbelief with his tongue, but as long as his heart is firm and tranquil upon belief in Allah and belief in the Messenger of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then we have disbelief in the actions, disbelief in the limbs. Okay, disbelief in the limbs, and this is anything which opposes Islam, and that which doesn't, okay, that which opposes Iman, okay, that which opposes and goes against Iman, and that which doesn't oppose, okay, and that which doesn't oppose Iman. Okay? So, for example, the things that go against Iman, okay, the things that go against Iman, such as prostrating to an idol, or humiliating or disrespecting the Quran. For example, stepping on the Quran, or putting the Quran in the toilet, or putting the Quran in a highway, throwing it out your window and ripping up the pages and things like this, or killing the prophets, or killing a prophet, or cursing any of the prophets. All of this go against faith, and these are considered, right, disbelief in the actions of the limbs. So the disbelievers, okay, who are the disbelievers? Now we're talking about Surah Al Kafiroon here, brothers and sisters. So the disbelievers are all those who haven't entered Islam or believed in the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, such as the polytheists, such as the Jews, such as the Christians, the Buddhists, the Magians, the idol worshippers, the Hindus, the atheists, etc. And we have different categories. We have the people of the book, okay, they are considered disbelievers, the Jews and the Christians. Also, those whom the scholars differ about, whether they are from the people of the book or not. For example, the Sabi'un, as Allah talks about in the Quran, okay, the Christians from Bani Taghlab, who were around during the time of the companions, at the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Also, those who were following the scriptures of Ibrahim, the Suhuf Ibrahim, and Sheaf, and the Zabur of Dawood. And also the Magians, okay, the Magians, those are some of the groups who the scholars differ in. So the third category of disbelievers are those who have no book of revelation at all. Those who have no book of revelation at all, who are considered idol worshippers and polytheists. And these are the ones who are, right, kufr asli, right, means that they never entered Islam. But then you also have people who apostated from Islam. They are also considered disbelievers as well. So now we're going to move on to the next verse, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, La a'budu ma ta'budun, that I never worship that which you all are worshipping. So the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam here, he singly negated that he doesn't worship that which the idolaters and all of the people who worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala worship. So we see here the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says a'bud, right? A'bud, I myself who single Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala out, right, in the singular form, I do not worship that which all of you are worshipping, right? Ta'budun, right? This came in the plural form. All of you polytheists, all of you Jews, all of you Christians, all of you Magians, all of the things that you guys worship, I myself do not worship all the things that you all worship. So the scholars say, right, that this means, right, as it came, is a jumla fi'liya, right, a type of sentence in the Arabic language which starts with a verb, So this means at-tajaddud, that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam will never and will always not worship those which those polytheists and idolaters will always worship. So not now, during his time, right, and right, also in the past and also in the future. So here it would mean, I do not worship your idols and you do not worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So nor are you worshipping what I worship constantly. Okay? So why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say ma and He didn't say man in the next verse? Okay? وَلَا أَنْتُمْ عَابِدُونَ مَا أَعْبُدُ وَلَا أَنْتُمْ عَابِدُونَ مَا أَعْبُدُ, and neither are you, and neither do you, and you are not from amongst those who worship the one who I worship. Okay? Nor are you worshipping, or will never be described with those who worship the one who I worship. So why did Allah use the word ma, right? Ma a'bud, right? Wala antum a'biduna ma a'bud, and He didn't use the word man. Okay? The word ma is usually used for things and the word men is usually used for individuals or beings. So why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala use ma instead of men? The scholars say because it is in contrast, right, and to opposite, right, to contrast what they are worshipping out of falsehood, what the polytheists are worshipping out of falsehood. So we have two nouns here, okay? Two nouns. Antum abidun. Antum abidun. We have a detached pronoun, right? Detached pronoun here. Antum meaning all of you, and abidun. This is like a wasf. This is a meaning which means that these people will constantly be from amongst those who don't worship Allah in the past, in the present, and in the future as well. So ma a'bud, I will always worship Allah, and they will always worship other than Allah. And then Allah, He goes on to say, wala ana abidum ma abadtum. So here is also what? A jumla ismiyah. So the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah is constantly freeing the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Freeing himself and describing himself as someone who will never worship these things which the polytheists worship during his time, during the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's time, and before his time, from the religion of, right, what those tribe members from Quraysh, their forefathers, were upon, and also in the future, right, during the time of the companions and after them up until the day of resurrection. So the next verse, وَلَا أَنْتُمْ عَابِدُونَ مَا أَعْبُدُ. So the first time where Allah, He says this verse, وَلَا أَنْتُمْ عَابِدُونَ مَا أَعْبُدُ, was for the past. Okay, it was for the past and during the Prophet's time. Okay, the first verse which says وَلَا أَنْتُمْ عَابِدُونَ مَا أَعْبُدُ was regarding during the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the past. But this second verse here, which is the same wording, where it says وَلَا أَنْتُمْ عَابِدُونَ مَا أَعْبُدُ, is talking about, right, is talking about for the future. Okay, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala negated that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would ever worship that which the polytheists are worshipping in the past and during his time, and also in the future. And then Allah, He finishes the surah saying, لَكُمْ دِينُكُمْ وَلِيَ دِينِ, that you have your religion and I have my religion. I free myself from your worship of other than Allah, and you are freeing yourself from worshipping my Lord Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So here we have, right, one time we have a jumla fi'liyah taratan and jumla ismiyah taratan, right? Sometimes we have an Arabic sentence which starts with a noun, and sometimes an Arabic sentence which starts with a verb. So the jumla fi'liyah is used for constantly, okay, for negating a constant trait. For negating a constant trait, okay? For negating a constant trait. This is the jumla ismiyah. The jumla ismiyah, okay, the jumla ismiyah, where it says, for example, وَلَا أَنْتُمْ عَابِدُونَ مَا أَعْبُدُ, is used to negate a constant trait. Okay? Meaning that the polytheist will never be described as those who worship that who the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam always worships. Okay? And the second, the jumla fi'liyah is negating the occurrence of it in the future. Okay? Negating the occurrence of it in the future. So the jumla ismiyah, okay, wasfun thabitun fil hadir wal madi, right, is a constant description of what the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was upon during his time, and also in the past. Okay, what he was on during his time, and also in the past. Okay, and it is a constant description towards the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and describing him and what he's upon, and also describing what the polytheists were upon as well. And also the jumla fi'liyah nafiyat tajaddud fil i'tiqad fil mustaqbal. It is negating, right? It is negating a change to occur in the beliefs and the affairs of i'tiqad in the future, after the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Meaning that the Muslims will always worship one Lord, and the polytheists will also always worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this surah, brothers and sisters, Surah Al Kafiroon, it does not mean that one approves of those who are worshipping other than Allah. Rather, it says that each person has a choice. You have a choice to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you have, right, or you have a choice to disbelieve in Allah and not believe in the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and not worship Allah. And one's destination, one's final destination will be determined based upon one's choices here in this world. And Allah says in the Quran, La ikraha fi din. There's no coercion in the religion. Right? No coercion in the religion. It is upon us to convey the message. If somebody accepts it, alhamdulillah. If somebody doesn't accept it, you keep moving on and you say, bear witness that we are Muslims, those who submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this surah also contains a couple of benefits in regarding da'wah, how to give da'wah and how to call people to Islam. The first thing is giving da'wah to non-Muslims. How do we give da'wah to non-Muslims? We do not have to conform and give up our principles and beliefs. We can have our religion and our beliefs, and they can have their religion and their beliefs as well. Secondly, freeing oneself from the things that the disbelievers worship in falsehood, such as cows, such as insects, such as monkeys, such as women, such as money, such as status, such as all of these things, such as the cross, such as Jesus. We free ourselves from worshiping all of those things, and we only worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And if they deny the message, then we say, we have our religion and you have your religion. And this is what I wanted to share with all of you today, brothers and sisters in Islam, and my good students and fellow colleagues. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us to the straight path and keep us firm upon the Quran and imitating the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in every big thing and every small thing. Jazakallah khair for joining us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.